Welcome back, book nerds. Like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching. This is Oathbringer Reread. Last video we did Kaladin's story. Now we're going to do Kaladin and Shallan. And the last battle will be in a separate video because this is just getting to be too long. Okay, so we open with Oathbringer with Kaladin being his typical brooding self. And Syl is actually bright and is trying to fix him, which is, oh, shocking, what we know Kaladin to be. Kaladin is reunited with his parents, and this is a good, touching scene, and it's important for him, and it's hard for him to confess to his parents that he failed in his duty. But just after this, Dalinar gives Kaladin a span read, and he is off in his next task. Kaladin goes off to talk with the Parshmen, and he actually starts to develop a bond with them. They get closer. And then, of course, the brooding person that he is, he gets conflicted. Big surprise. He has internal conflict. That is so out of character for Kaladin. In the next high storm, a high spren appears to Kaladin. And this high spren asks Kaladin to fight on the side of the Parshmen. She says if Kaladin does this, that she will speak for him. After Kaladin comes back to Bridge 4, he is conflicted. And he clearly has issues battling inside his brain. And he actually gets in a fight with Yasna about the Parshmen. Now we find Tef about to kill himself. He is addicted to fire moss, and he's having some hardcore addiction issues with this. And again, Brandon Sanderson writes these things so well. He writes the addiction issues well. He writes depression. He writes the whole coping with the mental illness so masterfully. But like the good friends that they are, Kaladin and Rock nurse Tef back together as well as they can. Okay, we will come back to Kaladin's story, but for a moment, we need to talk about Adolin. Adolin is in charge of the supplies and trade issues with Urithiru, and is pulled into a murder. Actually, a copycat murder, the murder of Sadeas. Now, this is funny because Adolin is the one who murdered Sadeas, so he finds it interesting that there was a copycat murderer since he was the one who did it. So now he has to investigate this copycat murder. Now, Adolin doesn't really have a big character arc in this story outside of investigating said murder. Now we are on to Shallan and her Stormlight abilities. Her scene opens up with her casting a Stormlight representation of the entire continent. Literally a 3D map right in front of everybody, which is pretty cool. It is here that Adolin begins to train Shallan with her shard blade. But she doesn't take to the training very well. Her mental illness comes flushing forward with any kind of situations like this. She really pulls back, and it's her other personalities that have to take over to do the things that she's just not ready to do. So it's here that she creates another personality named Radiant. And Radiant is an interesting personality. When she created Veil to investigate things in dangerous situations, but now she's created Radiant to really be the warrior side of herself. And these said personalities are all over the place in this book. There's so many chapters. There's Radiant chapters, there's Veil chapters, there's Shallan chapters. And you have to remind yourself that these are all Shallan chapters because they're all her. And each one has their own storyline, like they are actual characters in the book. Now we have all the point of view characters all coming together and doing things cooperatively. Cal and everyone else fly to Kolinar. Shallan creates disguises for everyone, which is a really funny thing for her to do because the disguises really kind of show how she sees people. Like Kaladin is this just creepy old man, and Adolin is this hot looking young guy. Okay, in Konar, there is something wrong with the Spren. They're just not quite acting right. And everyone kind of like, they don't really know what to do with that. Like, it's just weird. Okay, here, Kaladin gives Shallan the king's letter to take to the soldiers. But this doesn't go well for Shallan. She walks up to the guards to give them the letter, and the guard runs her through with his sword and literally just throws her dying body on a pile of corpses in this room and leaves her to die. But of course, this is Shallan we're talking about. She just pulls on Stormlight and heals herself and goes about her day like nothing even happened. In fact, this happens several times in the next few chapters, and she heals herself again and again and again. Okay, meanwhile, Kaladin is on patrol and he hears all these whispers in the wind and doesn't quite know what's going on. And at the same time, Shallan is walking through the city acting like Robin Hood, a savior. She's handing out food and helping the poor and doing all these things. I have to think about this character is that she's, even though she's been through so much horrific stuff, she still wants to help people. She has such a need to help. Now, Shallan finally pulls all the versions of herself back together. And she shares the information that she gained in her investigations about the Unmade. So there are two Unmade. There are two Unmade that is corrupting the Spren, and that's why they're acting so strangely, because they're being corrupted by the Unmade. So one is corrupting the Spren, and two is making all the people of Kolinar act really weird, indulging in excess of every kind of food and alcohol and massive orgies all over the place. So Shallan joins this cult in her investigation. She joins this cult and is in this cult that she really hears the whisper voice. This really becomes a thing now. In fact, this place is crazy. Inside this building that she finds herself, it is insane. Okay, now the city is under attack. Okay, this is the big fight. Shallan, the Windrunners, but Shallan is ripped away from them. 100 identities flow into Shallan, and she is fighting for her life at this moment. And Kaladin is fighting his own battles. He's killing Spren right and left, and falls to his knees in despair. And he's going to die at this moment. He's being attacked, and he can do nothing about it. But then he remembers Elhokar, and he has to get him to safety. And that's the one thing about Kaladin. Like, he will always do what needs to be done to protect people. And he does. He gets Elhokar out. At least he thinks he does. Because at the last moment, Moash runs Elhokar through with a spear and just right in front of Kaladin. Kaladin froze. He watched the whole thing happen. He could do nothing to stop it. This will be a thing in Kaladin. This will bog his character down. This is going to weigh heavily on him going into the next book. So they have to abandon the city and they escape through the Oathgate to Urithiru. So it's in this escape that Syl comes to Kaladin and confesses that she was bonded before. She had bonded to someone who had died in battle and it almost killed her. She told Kaladin that Stormfather demanded that she never bind with anyone again because she almost died. So when she chose Kaladin, she was choosing more than just binding with him. She was choosing her whole existence. Now Kaladin sees the Unmade, and he knows that he needs to get back to Dalinar right now. Okay, next we're going to talk about the final battle in the next video. So, read fantasy.